If you thought my creators couldn't get any higher, today has been the day where I've peaked.
One of the days where you have to cock up a graphic, I presume. Anyway, welcome to the not qualifying meaning practice, of course, for the ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix. I am JW97, the man who made the cock up with the graphic, and I am joined in the commentary box today by Rahul Patel. How are you doing?
Hello, I am doing fine.
Yeah, apologies for the cock up, guys. I didn't mean it, but anyway. It is what it is. It is the practice session, so don't get confused. It is practice, not qualifying. But we are here at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya for the first European race of the season, it must be said, after a pretty interesting first four races, which sees Franco Lopez now with a 26-point cushion ahead of Jose Wells after a rain-infested Baku race, which saw 13 cars finish, and Felix Sontar getting punted off by Chris Chatfield, which sent the whole of the stream chat into a bit of a frenzy. But anyway, we are here at Catalonia. As you can see, there is no rain for practice. Whether that will be the case for qualifying a little bit later on today, we'll have to wait and see. There are no test drivers. It is just the main drivers who are taking part in the session. So I think without further ado, I think we can get into the practice session. So we arrive here at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, not the updated version of Barcelona, of course. That isn't available yet onto Grand Prix 4. It is the old hairpin, but then again, they used the old hairpin back in 2019 and 2020 anyway, so it's not really much of an emergency. But anyway, we are here at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. Franco Lopez won last time out in Azerbaijan, ending Amarkar's streak there. And there was a bit of tension between the Ferrari teammates during that race as well, which involved me hiding in a cupboard. But anywho, we'll move on from that as we are now in the garages here at Barcelona, a 25-minute practice session. And this is obviously the first time, of course, since 2016 that the practice session has been on a Tuesday permanently, and it will remain like that, of course, for as long as it needs to be, really, from now on, I guess. There isn't really for the remainder of the season. It is from now on, as David Kupark is the first man out on track here for Toro Rosso as he makes his way through the first couple of corners on the racetrack as he makes his way through the right turner. So far this season, Ray Hall, how have you found the season to be? Do you think it's been quite a good season so far?
Yes, quite a good season. 3 teams having 1-2s. Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull coincidentally. And also Franco won 2 in Bahrain, so at least 1-2s everywhere.
Indeed. Obviously, that is the thing. 3 out of the first 4 races we have had a 1-2 finish, of course. Will that be the case here in Spain? Obviously, at Melbourne, as Rahul just pointed out, Red Bull got the 1-2 with Franco Gamba ahead of Nicolas Gal. Then in China, it was a Ferrari 1-2 with Joseph Willows winning ahead of Laura Chung. And then in Azerbaijan, it was a Mercedes 1-2 with Franco Lopez winning ahead of the man who he ended the Baku streak off of, Amarkar. Whether we'll get another 1-2 here in Spain, we'll have to wait and see. Well, of course, Spain is a very unpopular track among many people, especially for this bit coming up, as George keeps on referring to in his commentary, the Mickey Mouse chicane, which destroys the flow of the track completely, but unfortunately, there's not really much you can do about it, I'm afraid. I think there have been, obviously there was that video from Josh Revel, which tried to find some solutions on how to sort out that corner, really, to get the flow back in without the risk of getting rid of the FIA grade 1 grade. But yeah, it's just one of those things, unfortunately, and that's kind of how the character of this track has kind of been destroyed in a way. The only real overtaking opportunity, really, has kind of been wrecked in a way. I'd say, in my personal opinion, because it gives me a perfect opportunity to do this, that you should switch the track to Aragon, because it is a much better track. But Who knows? Maybe when we get to the fantasy area, that'll be the case. I'm not trying to influence anything. I can tell you that for a fact. It is down to Yuri at the end of the day, especially when we have the new version of Barcelona, which comes out hopefully very soon, of course, which might sort out one particular corner. It has been a bit of a pain over the last few seasons for Yuri. Hopefully, it's not going to be too much of a concern this season. And I'm talking specifically about this hairpin that we're coming up to right now, as we have a brief look at Armar Carr. Still need to get a first win this season for Mercedes, but you have to say Armar's starting to pick it up now. You would have to say, Ray Hall.
Yeah, he has. He had a difficult start, but he has picked up after the Baku results. So, yeah, even though he didn't win, he still picked it up.
Obviously, he will still be searching for that first Mercedes win. Obviously, last season, speaking of people getting their first win in a Mercedes, Florian Volker picked up his first Mercedes win here last season. Will the same fate go the way of Armar Carr this season? We'll have to wait and see, of course. We just saw that Gomez there had a little bit of a lock-up going through into turn 4 there. Kupok setting the benchmark of time in this practice session of a 1:22.672. And that's that, really. Oh, am I lagging a bit? I do apologise. So, yeah, my apologies there. As if Robotic Me is about to say that Chung has now gone to the top of the timing sheets by 7 attempts at a Gal. Willows a further few hundreds back from Gal. His car is now getting held up rapidly now by one of the manners. I think that's Maxim Titkov, because it looks like they're Danny Kafiat helmet, so I do believe it is Titkov. As they come down the pit straight now then. And Titkov goes away, but Carr 200 off Chung, so it looks like he got a little bit of slipstream off of Titkov there. Maybe he could have gone a little bit quicker if he didn't get held up, as Motrin goes into third there in the Racing Point. And so that's that, really, as Titkov just makes his way around the long swooping right-hander. So we now look at Kupok. Let me just check this roboticness. Actually, in fact, no, we won't, because Tontov's got a problem. So I will hold off on checking what's going on with the roboticness of my voice, as Sontag has got a mechanical failure. It looked to me like a transmission failure from the looks of it, according to the steering wheel. I think it was. No, it was a suspension failure.
Yes, it is. It was a suspension failure.
Yes, it was. So I will have to... So Sontag has pulled off with a mechanical failure, the man who got the driver of the day rating at Baku. So Thomas said he goes to 5th there in the McLaren, and he'll have to jump into the team car. Luckily, he's put a time on the board, but it is only last, unfortunately, behind George Roku, surprisingly in second to last. Right, let me hear this robotic voice of mine, and let me see if I can suss out the problem to see if it's anything to do with my mic or not.
Oh. Well, okay. See Sontag's car at the moment.
I'm not really hearing it on the stream, to be honest, so a bit weird.
It goes third,
I don't know what you mean by the robotic voice there. I don't know if it's stream quality or whatever. But anyway, we just saw Videri there went into 3rd place there, as Carr now goes to the top, so he has been able to find some more. 1:20.8, 8 attempts quicker than Laura Chung. A good time there from our car, as Roland Motrin slots himself into 3rd position. So drivers trying to find a little bit more time in this practice session, of course, in this 25-minute practice session. Here is Laura Chung, who's getting held up by Rosetta Martinez, it looks like, as De Rosa goes into 5th position. Lopez, the championship leader, only 8th at the moment, as Chung trying to find a way pass on the manner, should be able to get him into the hairpin. But we'll have to wait and see on that as we ride on board with Davey Kupok now. Kupok, who, after an amazing Australia, it must be said, and quite an okay Bahrain, it seems that things haven't been going Kupok's way since then, Ray Hall.
Yeah, hasn't been his way at the moment so far.
So far, it must be said that Catalan, his less experienced teammate, must be said, as Campana has a little bit of a moment there, going through turn 3, and he's going way too wide there.
Yeah.
And luckily didn't do a Joseph Willows in 2012 there, where he decided to become a drifter. But anyway, Campana there, you can see, just had some oversteer going through into the first part there, and then looked like he was about to lose the back end, but was just able to get the car straightened up. Did a little bit of a rally drift there, but not to the extent that we saw from Joseph Willows back in 2012. So, yeah, Campana, obviously his lap ruined there, but a great save nonetheless.
Yeah, Joseph Willows is in 9th place. He improved his lap time. He's 1,000th ahead of Miklas Gal.
Yeah, obviously we did see quite a lot of traffic. I don't know if Joseph had any traffic on that lap, but then again, when we last saw him, he was actually on the same bit of track as what Lower Chum was at. So I'm not 100% sure if if he got some traffic or not, or if he's just struggling on the pair of tyres. Now, for the first time this season, if we're going on to the topic of tyres, we're actually using the yellow medium tyres, because we didn't see these, I don't think, during pre-season testing. So the medium tyres are being used for the first time this season, which is great to see. So all three compounds have been used. Obviously, it was to be expected. It wasn't like the dreaded super hard tyre from last season, which took a pain to get drawn out. But there we are. Q-Pot there made his way out the hairpin as we look back at Lean Campana. Now, one of the things with the Ferrari guys, they'll definitely need to patch things after what happened with Baku. A lot of people are arguably saying that Willows was the cause of Chung's crash, or the lead up to Chung's crash, I should say, which kind of put a prey to De Rosa and forced him into the wall at turn 2. I wouldn't have been surprised if there was a bit of an argument that happened down at the Ferrari camp after that race between those two, but they'll need to move on very quickly because obviously they do have a very strong car, it must be said, down the straights, but it seems that the luck hasn't gone Ferrari's way so far this season.
Yeah, indeed.
As they make their way through the long swooping right-hander goes Davey Kupok, and see what his first sector is like. 400 off his personal best in the first sector, so keeping consistent, must be said, although he is down in 14th position. His teammate Catalan currently 16th, and in that Toro Rosso sandwich at the moment is Lean Campana. And so obviously coming into this race, of course, Mercedes for the first time this season lead the Constructors' Championship ahead of Red Bull and of course Ferrari. And obviously last time out in Baku as well, we had quite a tense fight for that final podium place between Gal, Motrin and De Rosa, despite him getting a 10-second time penalty. But again, Motrin, obviously it's been a while since he's been on the podium, and yet again, when we thought that he could have possibly ended that podium drought, it still came back to bite him in the end.
Yeah, Hungary 2019 vibes for Roland, as you said, because Mikkels did make a pit stop at the end, and also he made it to get past Roland at the end of the race. So yeah, some vibes there for Roland.
Top of that as well, Miklos actually went on to the normal wet tyres that even Armar Carr tried on as well. And as Wells Carr was actually catching to Lopez towards the end. Obviously, the cap was too big for him to mount a challenge for the lead and to try and keep his streak alive. But anyway, we now look at Q-Puck. He makes his way around the long swooping turn 3. We seem to like looking at Q-Puck quite a lot in this session. As Sontag, who's actually got back out in the T-car, has just made a move there on Jared Fosbury. And they make their way through these right-handers. Jared Fosbury hasn't had the best of starts of the season. Obviously, he had that great qualifying in China, which he should have got some points in, to be honest with you. But it has been quite a tricky year for Jared, unlike his teammate Chris, who's actually had quite an okay start to the season, despite the contact he had with Felix last time out.
He did get an 11th place in Baku, so at least he got something from it, but he didn't get points. So yeah, it ain't the best stuff for him, but he did get a result at Baku, which is 11th, so that is something for him to take.
Sontag 15th, as he's just got ahead of Campana, so 15th and 16th at the moment for Williams. Obviously, they did have a good showing in Baku, of course. Sontag arguably should have got a lot more points than what he did. Probably a 6th place finish, or even a 7th place if Chris Chatfield was able to pass him cleanly there at the end. But he was still on for some very good points, and unfortunately the contact between him and Chris meant he only scored one solitary point, as Carl will be coming back into the pits with lap, as he just puts an overtake on Jay McKenzie there. Renault, of course, starting to make a climb now through the championship. They obviously had quite a dreadful start to the season, must be said, but they're starting to pick things up now. Obviously, another double points finish for Renault last time out in Baku. Jay McKenzie so far, it must be said, surprisingly, compared to last season, so far having the measure of Evan so far this season after the first 4 races.
Yeah, and speaking of Evan Byrne, he goes 9th fastest now.
Yes, indeed. Jay McKenzie so far having the measure of Evan this season, but obviously it's only been 4 races. Things could turn around in the remaining point of the season. As we look at Chris Chatfield now, then he'll be trying to put a pass on Maxim Titkov. Now, of course, next week is the Monaco Grand Prix, and obviously next week is when we find out the Indy 500 driver lineups. And speaking of the Indy 500 driver lineups, if you have submitted a custom livery as your option in the Indy 500 signups, you have until the end of this week to submit your custom livery to Yuri, of course. Obviously, you do have the option of trying to keep the same livery as you had last season because the cars haven't changed, of course, as long as you submit that same livery to Yuri, of course, and make it known to him that that's what you want. That should be fine.
To add, you can also send a work in progress livery. I just need the proof that you are actually making a livery that you are running with. So even if it's not ready, send me at least what you have done so far, and you'll be considered for the guaranteed seats.
I'll definitely be handing mine in this week, that's for sure. But anyway, Laura Chung comes down at the pit straight, as she didn't improve that time by, as we just saw there. 8 tenths still off from Armar. She has been out on track for quite a while, though, I think, it must be said. Same with David Kupok, who's in front of her at the moment. Kupok, obviously, we obviously touched upon the fact that it hasn't really been plain sailing for the German at the moment. A lot of people, after the first race in Australia, were branding him as the next Florian Volker, but it just seems that things have started to not go well for Kupok. It seems that people may have jinxed him a bit there as Chatfield tries to put a pass there on one of the Manners. I think that must have been, from the looks of a helmet, that looks like it was... actually, I'm not quite sure who that was. But anyway, Kero crosses the line, no improvement for him. Kero at the moment currently finding himself in 5th position at the moment. Kero, it must be said, has definitely stepped up compared to last season, must be said. Of course, he had that podium last season at Monaco, but it wasn't really a season to write home about for Kero. But it must be said, with this much improved package, he's definitely been a match for Paulino, it must be said.
Yeah, he has been. And he's also done well in the championship. I do believe he's ahead of Paulino, but Paulino does have a podium. So, yeah, McLaren have improved a lot, and Kiro himself has improved. So, yeah, with the package and the driver have improved, as you said.
He is actually behind Paulino in the championship, but he is still in the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. 8th and 10th, both McLarens are in the Drivers' Championship, and McLaren currently lying 4th in the Constructors, a much bigger improvement than what it has been the last couple of seasons for the Woking-based team. As we look at Felix Sontag, of course, in the spare Williams, after he had his suspension failure a little bit earlier on in the session, finding himself in 15th position. Who knows whether this will also be a strong race for Williams? Well, they're currently 15th and 16th right now in practice, but as mentioned, this is only practice. This is not qualifying. Obviously, a lot of them will be doing some race runs, and some of them maybe potentially doing some quali runs at the same time, so you don't know about that. Willows slightly improves, but he still finds himself down in 9th. Lopez, surprisingly, still down in 8th, with Gal down in 11th position. As you just saw, Kira there got held up by one of the Manners there, as that Manor was coming into the pits, and that will obviously affect Kira's time as a result. But so far then, Carr is currently at the top, with Chung in 2nd, Motrin in 3rd, Federi in 4th, De Rosa in 5th, Garber in 6th, with Tomaselli in 7th, Lopez in 8th, Willows in 9th, and Byrne rounding off the top 10 at this point in time. Obviously next week at Monaco, we'll have the first booked practice session for a test driver. Obviously, we already had a test driver in this season, of course, in the form of Dennis Graff, but that was because he obviously asked permission for one of the main drivers to get in the car for that week. I'm talking about the first booked session. I mean, that is for sure the first ones that got booked in advance, and that will, of course, come courtesy of Rivki Fakhrizadeh in the Mercedes, and he will obviously, judging from the championship, he'll obviously be taking Amar Carr's seat for the Monaco Grand Prix practice session, because of course Carr finds himself over a victory in the fastest lap behind Lopez in the Drivers' Championship, as Catalan meanwhile goes up to 7th place in the Toro Rosso, so a big improvement there for the Italian.
Yeah, it was like a good improvement from him, from 16th to 7th. Good improvement from him.
As we look now at De Rosa, who's obviously not improving this time by, and going around the right-hander, and don't abuse Jared, Evan, unlike you, so that's why I'm being a little bit kind on him after the first 4 races. Just a thought. Anywho, as we look at Campana now then, who goes around these last few corners on the racetrack as he makes his way around these corners. Mackenzie, meanwhile, going up into 15th position, and he now makes his way towards the final chicane, goes Campana. So De Rosa's coming into the pits this lap as Roland Motrin gets a bit of slipstream there from Maxim Titkov, who's the only man on track, with Zeta Martinez, of course, in the pits. Motrin finding himself in 3rd position, and speaking of Racing Point, Roke goes up to 12th position in the other Racing Point, but still not near his teammate Motrin, who's around 6 tenths quicker than him in this session, as Motrin just makes his way around the long swooping right-hander. And As meantime, we look at Lopez. He's trying to find his way through on the Mano as Gomez goes up to 7th position. As Lopez again getting held up on his lap at the moment for currently finding himself down in 10th position. Obviously, he didn't have the best of practice sessions in Baku even last week, but obviously ended up winning the race during that week as well. So who knows, maybe a similar thing there as Tomaselli goes up to 4th position there, getting in front of his fellow compatriot Andre Vaderi as they make their way through the chicane there as De Rosa goes into the pits. As now we look at George Roque, who's trying to find his way by on the Manor, and as he just gets by there, getting late on the brakes going into the hairpin. Obviously, this hairpin doesn't exist anymore. I mean, the only time it exists is when the World Rallycross Championship actually, what I should say is the hairpin still exists, but it's only going to get used now for the World Rallycross Championship. Formula 1 and MotoGP now use that brand new long left-hander, which, as we speak, is currently still not available on Grand Prix 4, but I am aware is currently in development. As Campana now then makes his way around the final corner, making his way down the pit straight, and Campana now then crosses the line, and he does not improve at this point in time as he makes his way towards the first few corners on the racetrack, currently behind teammate Sontag down in 19th position. We have just under 8 minutes to go in this practice session. Of course, we will have the qualifying session after this as well. We'll obviously be going offline and then setting up a new stream for that qualifying session, so be aware of that. Don't be alarmed for anybody who's obviously new to the OC, of course, as Catalan makes his way towards the first few corners on the racetrack. He'll now make his way around the long swooping turn 3 now then. And let's see what his first sector is going to be like. He currently finds himself in 9th position, 6 tenths down off of car in the first sector. As now they make their way towards the first few corners. As Campana we ride back on board with. Let's see what his second sector is like. He's way off. I think he's way off his personal best in the middle sector. So this is clearly just a bit of a race run for the American. He makes it around the long swooping right-hander, as I think he's approaching the 2 Manners at the moment, who they're currently in a bit of a row with. Garber, meanwhile, goes up into 3rd position, 9 tenths off of car. So up into the top 3 now goes Franco Garber. As through the last chicane now then goes Lin Campana now then. He's making his way around that final turn, and he will soon be crossing the line. Let's see what he is able to do, and he's not going to improve that time by obviously 1.4 off his personal best, I must add. So clearly just doing a bit of a race run, I must have said, and he's obviously carrying a little bit more heavier fuel than what I've seen other people running with at this point in the session. 26 laps worth of fuel. I've seen some guys going around with 21 laps worth of fuel at this point. Catalan crosses the line, no improvement for him at the present moment, as one of the Renaults is just going out on the racetrack. Fosbury, meanwhile, on an improvement. I don't know if he just made a little error there, because it looked like the car was trying to bottom out a little bit going into the entrance of that corner. We'll see what his second sector is like. In fact, he's kind of missed the exit of that corner. He'll now make his way towards the hairpin. A bit of a weird line there for Jared Fosbury, it must be said. But he's still up on his personal best. He didn't quite get as close to the curb on the exit there, which I'm a bit surprised about. Don't know what that one was about. But anyway, Catalan now then, making his way towards that section of corner. As in fact, we're going to have a look at a replay of that, because that was a little bit of a weird line there for Jared Fosbury going out of the exit of turn 8. And as you can see there, I was right. It was starting to lock up a little bit on the inside wheel there as he makes his way out of the hairpin. But the correction has gone there. But why did he miss the entirety of the exit of this corner? I'm not 100% sure on that. A bit of a weird line there from Jared Fosbury, it must be said. I don't think I've ever seen that before, to be honest. But anyway, we now look at Jared Fosbury. He just makes his way out of that final chicane. Let's see if he's still able to improve despite that little weird moment that he had. Fosbury currently down in 20th. Let's see if he can move up a bit. He's going to cross the line, and he goes up only 1 place, up into 19th. He gets above Lin Campana as a result, as he now makes his way towards the first few corners. As we look at Campana now, he's slowly closing in on the 2 Manners and trying to get a little bit of healthy slipstream from Rosetta Martinez in front. But he's pitting this lap, so it's not going to mean anything at all at this point in time. As the 3 of them make their way towards the first few corners on the racetrack, with just 5 minutes left remaining in this practice session. As they make their way through the long swooping right-hander, Campana, of course, will be going back into the pits this time by. As we look at Catalan making his way towards the first few corners on the racetrack, and he's got one of the Renaults right behind him. I think that might be Evan Byrne that's right behind him. So Catalan, of course, having quite a good season, must be said, as Gal goes up to 8th in the Red Bull. But as I was saying, Catalan having a great season so far, currently outpacing Q-Pot this season, despite Q-Pot's very strong start to the season, and has been picking up some points here and there. Of course, he was involved in that pile-up that happened at the start last time out in Azerbaijan, which involved a few cars. In fact, involved himself, Gabriel Gomez, who else was there? There was George Roque, and of course, Paulino Tomaselli. Gabriel Gomez, of course, let's not forget, has a 10-place grid penalty as a result of that crash of the start line crash. In fact, the two separate start line crashes that he caused. The first one, which involved that pile-up, and the other one where he swerved across and ended his own race with Evan Byrne, forcing Evan Byrne to pit for repairs. And even involved his own teammate Andre Verderi picking up some damage as a result of Gabriel's crashed car as well. So obviously Gabriel Gomez will have to serve a 10-place grid penalty for this race. So wherever he ends up in qualifying today, he'll obviously drop 10 places back. Here is Matteo Catalan now. They're making his way corner. And let's see what the Italian is able to do. And he does not improve, remains where he is at the moment in P10. As the Renault behind of Evan Byrne is getting quite close to him. Obviously, we know how draggy that Renault is. Very good down the straight, it must be said. So if he gets close to him on the next lap, he might be able to just get past him pretty easy next time by. Catalan's teammate, meanwhile, Q-Pot goes up to 13th as Gal, meanwhile, goes up into 6th position, just behind the McLaren of Paulino Tomaselli and the Racing Point of Roland Motrin, who was fighting for that final podium place with last time out. Lopez was up on his time in the first sector, but because he got held up there by one of the Racing Points, he's now lost time to his personal best in the middle sector. Lopez, as seen in Baku, has not been very lucky with the traffic recently, Ray Hall.
Yeah, he wasn't lucky with the traffic, but he nearly did get knocked out as well. But yeah, a lucky escape from him not to get knocked out in Q2, but still, he did win the race, so at least a brief sign of relief for Lopez.
Indeed, now that he's now got a win in the fastest lap gap now ahead of Joseph Willows in the Drivers' Championship, and who is obviously a further point ahead of Franco Gamba. Both of those guys failing to finish last time out in Baku. Gamba desperately needing a good result to get himself back in the fight between himself and Lopez, and the same applies to Joseph Willows as well. As Roque now makes his way around the long sweeping right hander. I think it's a point. No, I think it's actually is it a further 10 points, in fact, that Franco's behind Willows? I can't 100% remember. But anyway, both of them needing to have a good weekend here in Spain to get themselves back in the fight with Lopez. As Gomez, the guy who's got the 10-place grid penalty, doesn't improve, as we now have 2 minutes remaining, as I'm pretty sure the radio guy will say, in practice. So 2 minutes remaining in this practice session. And so that's that really, as they make their way through the long swooping right-hander. As we now look at Paulino Tomaselli, he's got a bit of understeer there, and is he going to spin the car? He is going to spin the car. Tomaselli goes around, and he's going to have to wait for people to get by him. Luckily, he's off the racing line, so he's not going to cause a crash whatsoever, but he's having to wait for all these queue of cars to go by, having to wait for like the likes of Willows, that Racing Point, and Miklos Gal, I believe it was. It was Gal, because Garma came into the pits. But let's have a look and see what happened here, Ray Hall.
Yeah. He did
take...
Yeah. He used a lot of the curb, and yeah.
Had a bit of oversteer on the entrance there, we just noticed as well. As you can see there, look, you just saw there, the car trying to get away from him there, it ended up spurring off the track wide, and then he tried to correct it like we saw with Lee Campano a little bit earlier on, but he just wasn't able to catch it, and he ended up going into a spin. Luckily, the car actually spun off away from the racing line, so luckily nobody was able to collect him at that point in time. But you also saw as well that the cars were having to back off a little bit as well through that corner, as it was Miklos Gal, and you can see they're having to back off a little bit there because of the yellow flags, but also at the same time to ensure that he didn't end up clipping Paulino Tomaselli. Tomaselli able to get going, but of course that will not do his tyres any good whatsoever, I can assure you of that. As we look at Gabriel Gomez now then, probably this is either his penultimate lap or his final lap. It all depends on whether he gets a pit call at the end of this lap, given how much time we've got left in this session, which is just under 1.25 minutes left. As Gomez now then making his way around the final few turns on the racetrack through the long swooping right-hander, he will go. And we have now 1 minute to go in this practice session. Of course, we will have qualifying just a little bit later on. We'll obviously start a separate stream for that, so don't you worry about that. So we now ride on board with Gabriel Gomez as we see these final few laps being finished off. I think, will Gomez get another lap, or is he going to get the symbol to come into the pits? Gomez crosses the line and he's pitting this lap, so that's his session done. He didn't improve that time by. Here is David Kupok making his way out of that final corner. And let's see what Kupok can do. And he doesn't improve. He'll have one more lap. Gal doesn't improve. One more lap for him. Roke, meanwhile, going to cross the line. He doesn't improve. One more lap for him. Of course, he did get a little bit held up by Paulino Tomaselli as well because of his spin. And speaking of which, he's going to do a no lap anyway. But of course, no surprise, it doesn't improve because of that spin he had around turn 3. Here is Felix Sontag making his way then around down the straight. And he did not improve that time by. Chatfield, meanwhile, again, not able to improve. As we look at Mackenzie, 10 seconds remaining on the clock, and Mackenzie didn't improve. And will he be the final person to cross the line? I think he will be, because Lopez is only at the chicane, so I think Mackenzie is going to be the last person to do a lap, and he will be. So Mackenzie the last person to do a lap on this instance. Lopez, meanwhile, now then, to cross the line. Let's see what he can do, and he does not improve. Carr, meanwhile, his teammate, also doesn't improve either. We'll look at Rosetta Martinez and the manner. Just making his way around this Mickey Mouse chicane. Taking it through the left, using all the curbs as possible, including, well, a little bit of the outside curb. Around the final corner then goes Rosetta Martinez. Let's see what the Filipino can do. I don't think he's going to improve, but either way, cross the line. And no, he doesn't. Federi, meanwhile, going to cross the line. And no improvement for him either. As we look at Byrne, let's see, no improvement for him either. As we look at Kupok, making his way out of the final couple of corners. And let's see what he can do. Down the pit straight goes the German. I don't think he's going to improve, but we'll see anyway if he pulls some kind of miracle in the last sector. And no, he doesn't. That's Gal across the line. No improvement for him. Sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. Willows, meanwhile, goes up to 7th on his final lap there. Roke doesn't improve. Here comes Tomaselli. Let's see what we can do on probably them shot tyres, and he doesn't improve. Sontag going back in. Campana didn't do enough time to do a lap, probably just getting some mileage in. Chatfield, meanwhile, probably using Campana's slipstream if he can through this final sector, see if he can improve a little bit. I don't think he will, but anyway, Chatfield crosses the line and remains in 16th position. Titkov didn't do enough to do a lap as Mackenzie, the final person to cross the line, and there you have it then. So there you have it, that is the end of practice. Amar Kar quickest from Lower Chung in 2nd, and Franco Gamba completing the top 3. So what did you make of that session in the end, Ray Hole?
You can see how the traffic can affect everything in this practice session. Will it affect drivers in qualifying? We will find out.
Well, we're going to take a little break. You'll see the stream go off. We'll be starting a fresh new stream for the qualifying session. So, for the meantime, I'm been JW97. He's been Ray Hole, and we will see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix. See you in a little bit.